You're listening to the Coloring Book Creator Podcast, episode 46. And in this episode, I'm going to be sharing more about the rebrand of the Coloring Book Creator, including this podcast, and the new book I'm writing and why I'm making this pivot. And if you're considering making a pivot, either in your life, business, or both, what things or signs could be telling you that it's time to consider making one. So stay tuned. After 24 years in the online marketing and education space, I've learned a few things. From teaching myself how to create websites in the late 90s to learning how to write and create email newsletters to setting up and running a successful online store on eBay. I've also written and self-published 7 books of my own and helped over a dozen first-time authors create their first books. I started my own successful freelance photography business when I didn't even know what an f-stop was, let alone understand why I needed to know. But what you may not know about me is I've designed and ran 3 successful telesummits, including 3 podcasts, that has attracted thousands of viewers and attendees. So it would suffice to say that I've learned a thing or two on the subject of audience building. Now, I've also created and launched several online courses and events, but at the end of the day, my heart has and always will be to encourage and support creatives like yourself to believe in themselves and set up systems that will help you monetize your talents, skills, and gifts, both in the online and offline space. Now, it is also my belief that teaching and publishing are 2 of the greatest opportunities to do both. So with that said, I'm excited to announce that I'm writing a new book, my first in over 11 years. And I just want to talk about that a little bit and share with you some things that are going on and why I'm making this pivot, including the rebrand and this book. But essentially, this book is accumulation of the things I've learned over the last 24 years in the ever-changing space of online marketing, course creation, and publishing. Now, this book that I'm working on is for anyone that considers themselves a creative, not only who loves teaching, but considers it a calling, teaching as an actual calling. And they want to use their passion to encourage and help others get more pleasure and enjoyment from learning how to express their creativity and be paid well to do it. Now, if that accurately describes you, then keep listening because I'm going to be launching what I'm calling a focus group that I will be hand-picking and inviting a handful of people to come join me in this focus group where you are going to get access to the work-in-progress book that I'm working on. You will get the title of the book. You will also get a synopsis of the book. And I'm actually going to be sharing with you an ebook iteration of the book because what I want to do is I want to connect to get feedback and just collaboration on it. I want this to be something very different than what I've done in the past where I've just written the book on my own and then released it. This one I actually want to do in collaboration. So if you've been listening to this podcast for a while and you are a creative, you are thinking about making your own books, or you're thinking about maybe getting into teaching, maybe doing online courses, workshops, retreats, boot camps, anything of that nature, and you like the idea of publishing and education or publishing and teaching as a part of your method of expression, possibly your business model, especially around the area of creativity, and not just around coloring books, but around any creative expression, whether it be jewelry making, whether it be pottery, whether it be photography, whether it be illustration, how to make sketchbooks, how to make whatever your creative genre is or your creative expression is. I actually would love to communicate with you as a part of this process in creating this book. So again, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a link in the show notes. What I'd like to do is basically have you message me. I'll put a link to my messenger on Facebook and on Instagram. And if you message me and say, I want to read it, I will send you a link to a little Google form that I'm going to make that I'll just ask a couple of questions. The main thing that I want to know is, what is your creative expression? What's your thing you want to do? Maybe what you currently have done or are doing. And the main thing I want to know is, will you actually participate in being a part of this collective, this focus group? I will be giving you access to the in-progress iteration of the book. It will be very important to get the most out of it for both of us is that you do actually read it, talk to me about it, and give me feedback and input about it. Again, you'll be a part of the creation of that book. What will happen is once it's finally done, not only will you be getting a physical copy of the book once it's published in the spring, but I have some other things I'm working on that I will make it worth your while. I want to make it worth your while and your time. So again, if you are interested in learning more about the book, the title of the book, the focus of the book, the subject of the book, and how I can support you in taking your ideas and turning it into a successful online education and publishing related business, I would love to speak with you about it. So with that said, I want to go into a little bit about the pivot and why I'm pivoting. Again, the Coloring Book Creator course and program is not going away. It's going to be rebranded. By participating in this focus group, you're also going to be getting insight into how I created the Coloring Book Creator. But I'll share a little bit of it now. So the Coloring Book Creator was actually not called that in the very beginning. When I first created the coloring book course, it was actually called Publish and Promote Your Coloring Book in 30 Days. But that whole process got started as a result of me participating in another program that I was a student of, where we were given the task of creating a challenge. And I decided to create a 3-day challenge. And I decided to make that challenge about how to go from idea to a coloring book. But first, the challenge was about how to find the idea. Now, I had published my own book, Never Too Late to Make It Happen, a year before. So I knew the process that I did to go from researching an idea to actually developing my book and then putting the whole thing together. And I did my book actually in 5 days. And I knew on some level that I was going to eventually teach other people how to do what I had done. But in the very beginning, I didn't feel that the time was right because I had just done it myself. I wanted to spend more time understanding the coloring book audience, the people who bought books, and I wanted to understand even the people who sold books. I wanted to understand it. So I spent really a good part of about 6 or 7 months really studying the coloring book industry and marketplace, if you will. But initially, I started out with a Facebook group where I just invited people who actually enjoyed coloring. They didn't necessarily say they wanted to learn how to make a book, but they did enjoy the coloring process. And actually, I ended up with about 1,000 people in that group. And I spent a good portion of about a good 8-9 months getting to know this group of people, understanding buying habits, what things interest them, and understanding basically the customer of a book. Again, I didn't focus in the very beginning on the making or the production of a book. And I actually launched my first business as a result of that group, which was a group called My Coloring Club, where a small group of us met once a week, every Wednesday, for a year. And we just colored and hung out together. That's all it was meant to be. Pretty soon after I launched that group and launched that membership, I felt myself becoming that feeling of sort of restlessness, which I will circle back around to the conversation about pivoting and when it's time to consider pivoting. So what I did was I created this paid membership community. We met every Wednesday, and all we did was color. It was kind of like a knitting circle, but for people who colored. And they enjoyed the coloring process. And like I said, it was great. I was glad I did it. But I began to feel that sense of restlessness around it probably about 4 or 5 months in. It was great. I'm glad I did it, but it wasn't quite enough for me. And so I had signed up for this other program where I learned the process about running challenges. And I signed up for that. And then part of the challenge for us being in the challenge was to create our own challenge. So at that point in time, I felt, okay, this could be the time now for me to consider maybe moving forward with helping someone else make a book, now that I feel like I understand why people buy books and what the buying habits were. So I decided to really, with not a lot of advanced overthinking or processing or planning, I just made an announcement that I wanted to put together a free 3-day workshop where I would help someone find and validate a coloring book idea. I went through my own memory bank of what I had done to put my book together, and I had researched ideas for books, did some research on it to try to figure out what was currently selling. And I didn't spend a lot of time in that space, but it was a part of what I wanted to do. So I said, you know what, I'll take that piece of it and I'll teach it. So anyway, I put that out there, and I ended up using Facebook ads, because Facebook ads is what I'm very familiar with. It's what I used to create my first group that I had. So I went back to the well and used what I already knew again. And this time what I did was I ran an ad inviting people to join if they were interested in getting help from me to get their book done. It was just no massive call to action. It was just, were you interested? I wanted people to self-identify that they were interested. So I ran that ad, and I believe I ended up with like 67 or so people that raised their hand, and I immediately put them in another Facebook group. And in that group, I nurtured them and have conversations with them, and then announced I was doing this 3-day event. And in this free 3-day event, I then basically had the conversation around getting the idea, validating the idea, and seeing if it was something worth moving forward with. I had no plan of what I was going to sell, but I knew that it was probably going to be a course. I wasn't sure quite yet. But even after I completed the 3-day challenge, I didn't make a paid offer at the end. I really wanted to do it to see if I actually would want to go into more depth about the topic. So after that challenge was done, I then invited listeners to meet with me through a one-on-one Zoom calls where I could ask more questions. What I'm sharing with you here is a very poignant tip for you, is that as creators, we tend to want to go off into our little world and make whatever we want to make, and then bring it out into the world and go, ta-da, here it is. Well, we don't know if people really want what we've made. And a lot of times what happens is that if we don't get the response that we want, it wears on us from, I think, an emotional, creative, and even a psychological, mental level. I believe in the power of collaboration, which is why I'm creating this new book with that. Everything that I will do in my business will always be a result of some form of collaboration. This podcast exists as a form of collaboration. This podcast only came to me after I launched the Publish and Promote Your Coloring Book in 30 Days program. And how that came to be was I said, I want to provide a platform. I want to provide a space where the authors that I am helping to get their book done, I want to provide a platform for them to then announce their book and help them promote their book. So the podcast came after I'd already started the course, teaching the course, I should say. So anyway, again, I'm always of that space that we can waste a lot of time, a lot of mental energy, obsessing about our ideas, spending a lot of time creating something, spending hours and hours and sometimes months, even years working on something to put it out into the world and have no clear validation if the idea that we have is even going to even work. This brings me back to why I'm writing this particular book, but this also brings me back to a little bit about the whole thing about pivoting. And these are signs to let you know that it could be time to pivot. The reason why I am in the process of rebranding the podcast that you're currently listening to as it ties to the book is that I want to expand the conversation beyond budding coloring book authors. I will never stop helping anyone who wants to publish a book, whether it be written, coloring, illustrative, whatever. That's always going to be a part of what I do. But I also am, as many creatives, as I'm sure you listening, I'm also multi-passionate. I started out myself with photography. I still love photography. I don't practice it as a regular part of my life like I did 15 years ago, but I still love photography. But I also have a great appreciation for all forms of creative expression. And I want to be able to expand not even the types of people that I want to communicate with, which could be any type of creative, but I also want to expand how I'm working with creatives. And again, at its core, for me, I am very passionate about teaching, education, and I'm very passionate about publishing. So for me, this pivot was not just about making a book, but about how you can create an online program. It can be a short fixed term course or a mini workshop, or it can be a boot camp, a retreat, a challenge, whatever you want to label it as. It can be a one-time thing that you make once and sell again and again and again. It can be an ongoing thing like what I've done with the society that I have. It can be whatever you want it to be, but I firmly believe that education and teaching has a really valuable role in not only the income generating opportunities that it can provide, but also in your marketing. Whether you're doing YouTube, whether you're doing, any other type of marketing, video related marketing, or have you, even a podcast for that example, we're teaching. This here, what I'm doing now is a form of education. I'm creating content that I am recording from audio and I'm sharing it with you. This is a form of teaching. So I don't want you to limit the concept or the definition of teaching by just a paid opportunity, a paid course. It can be a podcast. It could be a YouTube channel. It could be TikTok. It could be whatever you want it to be. But I know that as creatives, artists, that our greatest asset that we have is our ability to demonstrate and share what we do. Whether you're making jewelry, whether you're knitting, whether you're making a coloring book, whether you're writing a book, whether you're making music, whether you're doing photography, whatever it is. So with that said, I look at the definition of teaching beyond just courses or workshops or whatever you want to label them as. I look at it also as the ability to be able to use that demonstrative, educational-based form of communicating with your audience as you're growing it in order to get people invited into your world and wanting to be a part of your world. So I want to expand the definition of teaching. Again, with that said, the pivot for me now is not just about how to help someone go from idea to finished coloring book, but how I can help creatives in all genres be able to use educational-based resources, whether they do it for marketing and or for income generation, with a combination of that and publishing, to be able to set themselves apart from everyone else that's out there doing something similar. I know every one of us has a book in us. Every one of us has at least a mini workshop or course or something in us as well. And even beyond that. So again, this is why that feeling of restlessness has been with me for a while. I heard earlier, not so much a direct business mentor of mine, but someone I would call the godmother of online marketing many years ago, back in 2006. I don't want to mention names, but anyway, I remember hearing her say that whenever she made changes in her business was when she started feeling restless. And I never really thought about it that way until recently, but I've known for a while that I wanted to pivot and not just talk about coloring books. That's another reason why I've taken time to really give this a lot of thought and soul searching, because I've spent about a year plus in developing this. But now what the podcast and the program and everything I have, it's not about dismantling it. What I'm speaking about conceptually and practically and technically will still apply, whether you're selling a coloring book or jewelry or whatever, but to position it from a branding perspective as just coloring book, I feel is now too limiting. So for me, it's come to my full level of awareness and understanding that it is time to pivot. Part of that is going to be in the rebranding of the podcast name. Years ago, I had a name that came to me. Actually, it was a podcast that I had once before that I put the pause button on because it just wasn't right timing. But again, I am very passionate about creative entrepreneurs. I have been for years. And so I definitely know that I want the brand, the rebrand, to be about helping to create a creative entrepreneur. And that's really at its core what I am most passionate about. With that said, there's a strong feeling of rightness that this rebrand is right because, again, of just the internal work that I've done over the last several years, the introspection that I've done, and just where I'm at. I want to be able to help creative become a creative entrepreneur. Emphasis on the word entrepreneur. There are business systems that every creative who wants to make money, online or off, needs to know and understand and embrace. And I just feel very strongly it's a part of my calling, my mission. Some might call my ministry, whatever. I just know in my heart this is where I'm going with this. And so I want to be able to now expand the conversation, not just in terms of what I'm talking about on the podcast or in my programs, but who I'm talking to. So what I would ask of you is that if you, first of all, if you're interested in joining me on this new journey, I would just say this is a great opportunity for you, because if you decide to become a part of my focus group, you're going to get a behind the scenes to all of it. The rebrand of the podcast, the writing of the book, all of it. You're going to get a behind the scenes, right up in there in the trenches sort of view of how all this is being put together. So again, if this is interesting to you and you would like to be a part of that, and if you're creative in any genre, even if you know someone that you feel, hey, this could be a good opportunity for you, especially if you're thinking about writing a book, especially if you've been thinking about getting into educational-based marketing, if you've been thinking about using either for selling and creating your own courses or using educational-based marketing to market your business, this is a great behind-the-scenes opportunity and one that I highly recommend that you potentially take advantage of. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the links inside of the show notes here to message me on Instagram or Facebook, and all you have to say is, I want to read it. And I will reach out to you with a link to a Google form. I've got a few questions I want to ask you to make sure that you're a right fit. And if you are, then as quickly as like in the next few days, I would like to invite the right people to come into this group. It's going to be a pop-up Facebook group, but we're going to be together for a little bit of time. And you're going to be able to start to read the manuscript for the book. I'm going to give you an ebook iteration of it. And I'll be creating this whole new rebrand in collaboration. And what you're going to get from this process is, if you are also been thinking about rebrand yourself, or you're just trying to get started, either writing a book, creating a course, or even just starting your business, selling your jewelry, your knitting, whatever the case may be, this is a great opportunity for someone to get the behind the scenes view of what it takes to go from idea to product in the marketplace, not from me or you going off onto your own and doing it, but in a collaborative, supportive space. If this speaks to you, do reach out to me via one of the two options in the show notes and just say, I want to read it. I'll reach out to you with the next steps. And again, at the time I'm recording this, this is going to go live as quickly as like in the next day or so, and actually immediately, honestly. So as soon as I receive your message, I will then send you a link to the mini little application. It's going to be like a few questions, nothing too painful. And if you're a right fit, you'll be invited into this pop-up group and we will start collaborating on the book and everything that I'm doing. You'll be getting a lot of behind the scenes of how to basically take an idea and launch it. And this is an experiment for me as well, because I've never done it like this before, but it's also exciting for me too. And I'm excited to do it this way because, again, I don't believe in the going off and doing it and then coming out and going, here it is, folks, go buy it. I don't believe in that. I think it can take too much out of you if you don't get the response you want. I want to know where the holes are as I'm creating, not after it's done and I'm out to sea and now I'm seeing all these leaks on the boat and we're going under. With that said, share this with anyone that you feel would be of benefit to this. keep listening to this space. I'm going to be talking more about the book in the coming episodes and about this whole process. And I would love to chat with you if you're interested and you're a right fit. All right. So with that said, this is Rodney Washington, your host, signing off, and I hope to hear from you soon. Take care.